Hi and welcome. My name is Tolan and I'm the co-founder of Productivity Me. In this video, we're going to look at the idea of absolute, relative, and mixed references. We'll discuss how to use these individual items and how you can think about them when working in Microsoft Excel. So let's get started. If you want to follow along, go ahead and open up exercise file 04.05 and you'll have the same info that I have on my screen now. Okay, so let's go. All right, so imagine that we work at a company, or perhaps we own a company, you have a small business, whatever the case is, and you have these individual employees or these coworkers, peers, maybe you're in the HR department, the human resources department, and everyone's gonna get a bonus. And imagine that the bonus is at the end of the year and everyone's gonna get $2,000 plus their salary. So their salary here is in column F, and what we wanna do is we want to go ahead and add this bonus of $2,000 to their salary. So it would seem kind of straightforward, right? So the first thing that we would do is we would take their salary, that in column F, and then we would add this bonus here. And we press enter. You'll notice that by default, Excel takes the letter and then puts it next to the number, essentially the column and the row, which is that cell reference, and then it's the same thing with K2. So we notice that if we add $2,000 to 48,118, we get the correct amount, and then we'll drag down. But there's something weird going on here, right? So essentially here, this person's not apparently getting a bonus, this person's not getting a bonus, this person is not getting a bonus. 63,975 is the same amount. We want it to be 65,975. Now, these people probably aren't going to be very happy, and why aren't they going to be happy? Because we didn't apply the difference between absolute and relative cell references. So by default, Microsoft Excel will use what's called a relative reference. A relative reference just means that you have the column here, and then you have the row, and that is the cell reference, so K2. Now, Microsoft Excel is going to take the relative position for that cell in K2, and it's going to apply it to this individual situation. So it's going to say, well, this cell was 1, 2, 3 cells to the right, and in that same column. So it's going to use that specific cell. But because we've moved one row down, that row 3, then it's going to presume that we want to use the value of K3. And here it's going to want to use K4, and then K5, and then K6. But what we want to tell Excel is every time that we're giving a bonus, we want that individual to refer to this specific cell. And the way that you would do that is by using what's called an absolute reference. Now, an absolute reference is going to use what's indicated by $signs, and there's no relationship between the idea that this is a salary and their bonus is in dollars. It's actually just a way that Excel distinguishes between wanting a relative reference or an absolute reference. Now, an absolute reference is going to have a $sign before the column, so that of $K, and then also before the row number, so that of $2. So what we're saying to Microsoft Excel now is this specific cell can change, so we can move down the row here, and we can move over columns if we want. But I want you always to refer to this specific cell, that of K2. Why does Excel know that it wants it to always refer to that cell? Because we're using an absolute reference with $K or $K, $2. So once we do that, so let's put in the $signs, we press enter, and then we can use our fill handle to just drag this down for several columns. And we'll notice that it's now changed, right? So it's still referring to that cell here, F3, but now it's always referring to that cell, K2. Same thing here, same thing here, same thing down here. So this kind of differentiates the point between relative references and absolute references. And we could also make this a percentage. So we could basically say, if this maybe we want to give people a 10% bonus, so, or a 20% bonus. So if we were to say 0.2, 20% bonus, and then we would have to change the formula here. So we basically say, okay, we want to take this, and then we want to add this times whatever the percentage is here. Now, if we were to make sure that it's relative, it's not going to matter, but we can actually just go in, put the dollar signs in, and then bring it down, and that will change appropriately. So the big takeaway is the difference between relative and absolute. If we go to the quarterly sales data, say that we have a total sales number here, and we want to calculate costs as a percentage of sales. Now, if we were to basically say, okay, we have the total sales, and we want to multiply it by the cost of 50%, then our total cost for that quarter would be $292,000. If we drag it over, it would basically say, well, oops, that's not correct. We know that's not correct because there have to be some costs. And why is it wrong? Because we're, again, using relative references. Here, relative references. Here, relative references. So the way that we would change that is by coming in here and putting in a dollar sign and a dollar sign, pressing enter, except that's actually not correct. So the way that we would solve this is we would come in here and we would put a dollar sign, and then drag it over, and those costs would be applied. So the idea of absolute and relative references can apply to columns and rows. We'll discuss kind of in greater detail in additional videos to clarify the difference between absolute and relative references. But if you want a cell to refer to a specific cell, then you're going to want to use what's called an absolute reference. And an absolute reference is indicated by a dollar sign in front of the column as well as in front of the row, and that is different than a relative reference, which is just the column and then the row number. All right, so in our next video, we're going to look at the idea of the Excel function of sum. We'll jump into that now, so go ahead and join us. All right, see you again soon, and as always, thanks for watching.